For more on if the deadline will be met and how much it will ultimately cost, I'm joined in Washington, D.C. by Republican Congressman Buck McKean of California, the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, and Democratic Congressman Joe Sestak of Pennsylvania, also a member of the Armed Services Committee and a former U.S. Navy three-star admiral. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you guys for being here. Representative McKean, let me start with you. The U.S. has an agreement in Iraq to begin pulling those forces out, as we mentioned, by June 30th. As a ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, how expensive will this removal be?
Well, we haven't been given a plan yet. We don't really know how much it's going to be. Last spring, we started negotiations, and those culminated in December in an agreement that said that all of the troops, the combat troops, would be pulled out of the cities by June 30th, and by December 11, all the troops would be pulled out of the country. When President Obama became president, he said that we would pull all of the combat troops out of Iraq by a year from August. So we have not seen any detailed plan. I do know that there's a lot of equipment. There's a lot of men in Iraq. We have now about 140,000, and there's 351 bases in Iraq that we're going to have to pull back from, close those down, move tons and tons of equipment out of vehicles. I don't even know what the cost is going to be.
You know, Congressman Sestak, I've seen reports that the average cost of a deployed troop overseas is roughly $390,000, not including many of the bases that Congressman McKean was just talking about, 351 of them. Walk me through, what do you project this to be? And look, does cost matter at the end of the day?
I can't give you the exact amount, but having looked at President Obama's budget when it was submitted to us a few months ago, it did not include the cost for over the next 2 years plus the complete withdrawal of all our troops. This is a very challenging operation. When we left Somalia after Black Hawk Down, we had 8,000 troops there. It took us 6 months to get them out safely because you had to insert other troops there in order to protect them during where the military is most vulnerable, a redeployment. There's one road out of Iraq. It goes down to Kuwait. And the force protection, as the remaining Al-Qaeda, and that's those, and there aren't many left, there's hundreds or a few thousand at most, we'll try to take advantage as we redeploy. The cost of this is going to be, well, I believe, over $100 billion just to deliberately redeploy. And Buck is right. We have over 40% of our Army sitting there in Iraq, and that is all their equipment. So this is, in the military, of what we say, amateurs do tactics, experts do logistics, and this is a logistical challenge to do it safely and deliberately for our troops. But do what we must, because our national security is harmed the longer we are in Iraq, and we can't address our readiness problems of our Army writ large and address where the real Al-Qaeda who struck us now have a safe haven in Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Congressman McKean, do you agree, or do you believe we need to maintain our presence there, and whether or not the Iraqi soldiers themselves can protect some of these cities?
Well, the ultimate goal was to be able to turn it over to the Iraqis, where they would be able to maintain the security that is required to keep the country secure. Whether we're at that point yet or not still remains to be seen. We've had some increased violence in Baghdad this week, car bombing, 100 people were killed. So it's going to be a tricky time. That's the problem with setting deadlines. When people know that there's a deadline, things kind of ramp up. But another question that we need to really look at is, what are we going to do with all of our equipment that is there? Are we going to leave it there, or are we going to bring it home? We had a hearing last year, and I was listening to the people testify, and I asked one of the colonels, what's going to happen? We were at the time trying to get more MRAP vehicles into Iraq to protect our people there, and at the same time they were talking over in the Senate about pulling out of Iraq. And I asked him, how many Humvees do we have there? And he said 17,000. And we were trying to ramp up to get 1,000 MRAPs a month over there. and it looked like we would be trying to bring, I said, are we going to bring all those Humvees home? He said, every one. So we could probably send a ship over with MRAPs and bring a ship back with Humvees. It just didn't make any sense. And I think that's why, as Congressman Sestak said, this is, the military know how to do this. They have to be the ones that can actually make these plans and make it work to bring our troops home safely. And I believe we should bring the equipment home. So it's going to be a very, very expensive venture. It's going to be a risky venture. And at the same time, we're trying to move more troops into Afghanistan. And some of the equipment can be transferred, but some of it we're going to need different kinds of equipment in Afghanistan. So we're heading into the next year and a half as very, very touchy times.
I mean, Congressman Sestak, when you look at the figures, and we were just showing them up on the screen, that the Humvees cost approximately $150,000, 17,000 Humvees. That's a lot of equipment, and that's just one specific type of equipment, not to mention the bulldozers and all other types of equipment that are being used overseas. Where does this ultimately wind up? I mean,
Yes, great question. There have been estimates, besides the approximately $800 billion we've already directly placed into our forces in Iraq and to support the Iraqi forces, that the cost of this war will ultimately be between $2 and $3 trillion because of having to reset the equipment and fix it, or replace the equipment that Buck speaks very wisely about. In addition, it's the post-traumatic stress disorder of taking care of our troops returning home, where over 20% of them have this mental challenge. And when you add all of that up, those indirect costs, this war will be between $2 to $3 trillion. But here is what's most important. This deployment absolutely has to be definitive, that we must do it. Why? When you have the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff about a year ago say, Afghanistan is spiraling downward, and then the head of the CIA a year and a half ago says, the Al-Qaeda at 9/11 has a safe haven in Pakistan, and now we have an army, which we know in open testimony where Buck and I heard it, that cannot respond to any other war plan throughout the world. For example, North Korea, as you were just talking about, we cannot have any Army unit in a position of readiness today to deploy to defend those 27,000 U.S. troops sitting in South Korea. We just can't do it. So this redeployment is absolutely critical because it's not about ultimately Iraq's security, it's about America's security to address the readiness of our Army to take care of these other simmering challenges we have there. And that's why this must be done.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we will leave it there. Big costs involved. Congressman McKean and Congressman Sestak. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and I apologize for the loud noise behind me. There's a concert going on in our plaza behind us at my good friends Fox and Friends. So I apologize for the noise, gentlemen. It's not me with a boombox, I can tell you that. All right. Thank you very much. All right. The May personal income and spending numbers are coming out right now.